Claire, I would like to step into the discussion because we just have 15 minutes left.
Yes.
Is there any direct elaboration questions or things that Claire should elaborate on? Direct question? No? Good. So I would just start with my first question because it's something that I've been just observing the last year, that in France, biodiversity or the integration of biodiversity within the private sector has always been so strong, has been always on the political agenda. So my question to you is, what is exactly the driving force, or maybe just a factor in a more simple way, that really put biodiversity as even earlier rather than in other European countries for businesses in France? What did it make it worth for them to work with diversity, to preserve biodiversity or to integrate biodiversity within their sustainability strategy? What do you think is the key about it?
The key is we started before 2010. We had the first biodiversity and business day in France in 2010. And it was a push by both business organizations like ourselves. We did a lot at the beginning, and the administration as well. And so we had a very open dialogue already, and it's really thanks to the ministry, which started with a forum where they had businesses, networks, stakeholders, scientists to talk about biodiversity. And it is during these forums that one said, maybe we could, how can we get the CEOs involved? Because we need that. We won't manage if the CEOs are not involved. And so the response was, we will not manage to catch the attention of CEOs if it is not a commitment that they are committing to. Otherwise, it's too vague. It's yes, okay, it's sufficient. Very interesting what companies think they are doing what should be done. As Nicolas showed, companies feel that what they are doing is sufficient. If there is a commitment and this commitment is they have to sign, but it is judged by someone else, it's important, not only their own judgment.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think this is really one of the key issues. I think there were also some parts of it which were already addressed to during the big panel discussion we had this morning. So yeah, is there any question you have for Claire? Should I just go on with my questions? Maybe I'll just do another icebreaker question, which goes to Nicolas. I would like to know from you, what do you think it's one of the most requested skills, so to say, for sustainability managers that they need? What do they need as a know-how to work on biodiversity in your region? What is the most requested offer, so to say? So what are they looking for exactly? What do they want to learn? Because it's a very complex topic, but there are then specific requests or specific skills that are needed. So how is it in your country? Is it reporting? Is it premises management? What is it?
Yeah, I'm sorry I cannot give you only one, since we have 500 members from all different industries and maturity levels. Yeah. But I'll give you some. I think one is know-how about nature-related data, metrics, and disclosure. And by that, I mean ability to assess, quantify, and report nature-related impacts, risks, and dependencies. And then also know how to use frameworks and tools like TNFD, ECRS, STAR, and NCORE. Then of course, science-based targets, nature strategies, and roadmaps. Know how to develop credible and measurable targets and roadmaps in relation to company strategy and business strategy. So it cannot be separate from that. Then one quite specific is landscape ecology and restoration planning. That's not usually part of necessarily the sustainability team know-how, but I know it's very much asked from the consulting companies. So for example, how to design scalable interventions rooted in ecological principles that are then working in that certain company environment. And then multi-stakeholder and community engagement, I think that is becoming more and more important to understand that the company is not working alone only in their own separate business environment, but it's a part of bigger world and community of stakeholders. Then two very important points that are not, I think, not that well understood in all companies. Sense making and leadership buy-in. So ability to really tell why we have to do nature work, why it is important to future generations, and why it is important to our company. And also ability to really help executives and leadership to understand that, because they do not speak the sustainability language, they speak business language and a little bit different language. Then also business integration understanding. So how the nature work is related to business strategy and business value creation. I'm sorry, there were 6 skills, but those are the ones that I think are very important.
I was trying to challenge you because I know it's so complex, it cannot just be one. But thank you, because it's really interesting to have your overview. I see, Claire, you would like to elaborate or to add something on that.
Yes, I think you have to have some people who like nature, because it is not it's actually difficult to explain business-wise. The business case is very indirect, the pressures are very often indirect, the risks are still more indirect and collective and diffuse. So you need to have some people who have some push and sensitivity about it, find them and put them in action. It will help.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we do have some questions from the public, so just one sec, that the microphone is coming. So the ice is now broken. Can you just shortly introduce yourself, please?
Yes, please. My name is Marcia Lima. I work for a biodiversity MRV company called Biometrio. And one question that I have is, it's very clear that one of the biggest gaps for these investments and engagement of companies is sometimes the lack of understanding of what does it mean biodiversity and what really can be measured, right? So what is the tools and what are the ways that companies that are engaged in that process that they usually use? Thank you.
To whom specifically you have?
For everybody.
For everybody, okay. Jérôme, do you want maybe to start on this? Because you, if you want to,
sure.
Or whoever wants to.
No, happy to share a few thoughts. I think obviously it's a very relevant question. I think one that many businesses ask themselves. It's one thing to understand the relationship between your organization and nature, and then it's a different thing to then move towards actual measurements. And it is obviously hugely complex, and I will not go into all the complexity itself. But I think there are tools out there and elements that are there to help. I think maybe, so I'll share a few thoughts. I think there are, first to say is that there are a few tools that have been developed specifically for this kind of initial assessment that are quite high level, but still provide a very good initial understanding of that relationship between an organization and nature. And the obvious one that Nicolas already mentioned is the Encore tool that is available online and is really there to have this initial understanding of impact and dependencies between an organization, a specific sector, and nature. So I think that's the first place to start with, obviously. But then if businesses progress further and want to move forward in that measurement, it's important to realize that measurement can be used for many different reasons. And so one element that we've been working on with the European Business and Biodiversity Platform is what we call the navigation wheel. And it's basically of all these measurement approaches. And the way it works is that it tries to link a specific measurement approach to an actual business use. So what is the business question that the organization is trying to answer? Is it measuring for a specific product, for a specific site, for a full value chain, for a full organization? Depending on that, you'll be ending up using very different measurement approaches. Some will be very site-specific, other will be more like life cycle assessment type of measurements, others will be based on proxies and units such as mean species abundance. So there is a full spectrum basically of measurement approaches depending on what you aim to inform in terms of decision. And I think that's what needs to be conveyed to corporates is to probably not dive directly into, okay, I want to measure my footprint, but to try to understand what is the most needed for them to act on nature in terms of measurements. So I think that's one important thing. And I'll just flag a third element is that there is obviously standardization needed among all these measurement approaches, even if they answer different type of business needs. And that standardization has been a core focus of a project that actually is now officially over since yesterday. Is a project that was funded by the EU and is called Align. And this was really aiming to align common principles on measurement approaches for biodiversity impact of corporates. And that project has been working very hard with a lot of stakeholder engagement over 5 years to design these kind of common principles for measurement. It's quite technical. I would say it's for a quite advanced audience, but it is really there as a tool for everyone to now use, and it's accompanied text. So there is a set of overarching recommendations, and there are sectoral guidance and additional elements to help digest all of that work.
Yeah. Thank you, Jérôme. We will integrate everything also in the documentation that we will be preparing after the conference. I think there was one other question. Yeah, just a microphone. And we have to be very, very sharp, 12:30 ready to go. Please.
I try to.
Maybe just short introduction. It's on.
Okay. I'm trying to be fast. So my name is Max. Thank you all for the interesting presentation. So I'm a designer by profession, and our office is designing publications for the German council that advises the government, and for universities and for the DRK as well. And so we come across a lot of content. And so one is telling there are risks, and the other one is telling there is a story, there is something to be reached together. And actually, I'm puzzled, I do not know which one to tell. Because we come across of cons like data protection. And the companies, they have guys like CISOs, Chief IT Security Officers. And this is all about risk. And sometimes the companies, they react. They do not always react on what the CISO tells them. But I have the feeling that this is what works with the companies. But it makes me sad because it's not what I want to tell. So maybe you have an idea what you would recommend depending on the target group.
Who would like to take the question from the speakers? Nobody.
It's yes, if I may.
Yes, sure, Claire. Sure.
I will start. I will leave the Act for Nature hat to take the EP chat, the Enterprises for the Environment, which is equivalent of FIBS in France. We are actually starting to go further with a risk approach, because of course the question of why a company should look after nature is basically a society is concerned about biodiversity, at least in France. They sort of more than 80% of people are worried about their own health if biodiversity disappears and so on. So there is some sort of a societal pressure, plus now all the mandatory requirements of data reporting and so on. But so there is this societal pressure and concern about biodiversity. A company cannot just forget about it. But to be more strict, and we are actually starting to work deeper on where are the risks, with little chance, with little hope to get to a very clear response. Was COVID one of the first consequence of biodiversity loss? Yes, maybe. It's not proven. Scientists are not sure about it. They will not pretend it. But we know there is some sort of relation. So that's what I was saying. The risk approach is not quite sufficient. You need to have people wanting to act. Otherwise, it's too theoretical. But if you are a company, the cook on your business restaurant can like biodiversity and be invited to work on it, or the guys who are maintaining your sites and so on. So you have to go closer to the operations also to find drive.
Thank you, Claire. I see, Jérôme, you would like to add something on that, and then we close. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to flag that I think it's obviously a very relevant question. I think it shows we are progressing in the right direction to have this storytelling element coming in, which I think is indeed very important. Obviously, you'll know that better than me as being a storyteller, I guess, but it really depends on the audience, right? And depending on who also within a company you talk with, you really need to adapt the messaging, because some, will be very much, the risk approach will very much resonate with them, and depending also on the size of the business, while for others it will be more around, okay, what story am I telling to my customers, to my staff? So I think we need to realize that there is no one size fits all in terms of storytelling around this, and I think you need to adapt to whoever, like each time on who you talk. And there has been some interesting work being done, for example, on designing persona of like a typical CFO in a company. What should you elevator pitch for a CFO on nature? Same thing for a CEO. Same thing for a head of HR. I think for each there is a different story to tell. And I think that's one of the complexity, but it's also a part of the journey to get that on the highest agenda within a corporate.
Yeah, thank you, Jérôme.
The Act for Nature multi-stakeholder approach helps build the story, because a company builds their own story doing it with others.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I would close because I know some of the speakers also have to be on time in other meetings. So I have one closing question. You have 30 seconds each of you. The question is, we already put it to our audience. What is the factor that makes it worth integrating biodiversity into business models? Another question just with one answer, which will not be possible. But I repeat it. What is the factor that make it worth integrating biodiversity into business models? Nicolas, I know you have to go. Do you want to start maybe? Just 40 seconds.
Yeah, I can do it in that. I think I actually already answered to this, but if I need to point out one thing, I would say it really builds your value chain resilience and helps you to gain trust among your stakeholders.
Thank you so much. Claire?
Yeah, I think you create positive attachment in your employees, in your territories, local communities around your businesses, in your value chain, and in your investors, because everybody knows this is a major crisis in the world. And so if you are starting to talk about it and act about it, you are creating positive things, whether it is directly profitable or more indirectly.
Thank you. Jérôme?
Yeah, well, I think obviously I agree with what was said. I think I'd say the one message is the fact that really nature is, I believe that the strongest ally basically of corporates in ensuring their long-term sustainability, resilience, and competitiveness. I think these are key concerns at the moment of many EU businesses and policymakers, and that's really the message that should be conveyed. And I believe that if this is done properly, by really integrating nature in the full strategy, it will also just reinforce not only the sustainability strategy of corporates, but just their strategy as a whole, because they'll just be able to really much better frame their activities within their surroundings of their direct and indirect operations.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's time now to close. I just give you one or two words that it's the result of our survey, which we did this before we started. I think from the bubbles, that the words that were used the most, what is the factor that make it worth integrating biodiversity into business models? Resilience, risk mitigation, sustainability, success, life. Very interesting. But
Super.
I think, but I think it tackled most of the topics that we had the chance to discuss today. So we are closing here. Thank you again very, very much, Jérôme. Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, Claire. Thank you to the colleagues abroad in Montreal and in China. I don't know which city exactly. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And for any questions, do not hesitate to contact me or my colleague. Thank you so much. We'll keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.